of publicly hijacked buildings. We own, we have, as you said, 338 buildings that have been hijacked that are owned by ours. I'm very happy that we reclaimed one in eThekwini a week ago, which was Excelsior Court, after I went there to visit it. But what it shows me is that there clearly is a need to conceptualize what the state wants to do with its assets. If there are 338 buildings that have been hijacked, and I met with the mayor of eThekwini this week, which also dealt with a number of bad buildings there, it's clear that the state doesn't use all of these buildings and never will. So we then need to start optimizing them, rationalizing them, disposing of them, call it what you will. But what we can't allow is our buildings to contribute to crime in communities, in cities, be used to do all manner of other things, to lower property values. It's just not fair on residents in cities and suburbs where our buildings are not being looked after or not secured. So firstly, we have to secure what we own, and then we need to start then working with municipalities on whether we want to still keep them or not.
338 hijacked government buildings. Yeah. At first, I had my nota reaction. But then, after a little bit of pondering, I realized that me being surprised is a bit unreasonable. Because, logically speaking, and I'm just saying logically speaking, there is no way that 338 government-owned buildings are all hijacked and somebody doesn't know. And with this thought, I remembered Rise Mzansi, after one of the buildings burnt in Johannesburg, and this building was also found to be a building that was awarded to an organization, I think a non-profit organization or an NGO, and this building was not used for what it is intended for, or what they say on paper it's intended for. And then it is revealed that the people that live in that building particularly were paying rent, and the building was full. So somebody was making money. Like it just disappeared into thin air. No one is really talking about it anymore, but I think this Dean McPherson might bring it back. 338 hijacked buildings. You want to tell me that 338 hijacked buildings were hijacked, people are living in those buildings, they are paying rent, and someone doesn't know? Someone within whomever was the leader when these were hijacked. I'm not going to say who was the leader. I'm not going to say which political party was holding or the leader in government or parliament. But someone knew. Someone definitely knew. Someone may say that this is me making an assumption. One may also think that this is me making allegations. But listen, I'm not making any allegations. And okay, you could be correct and say that it is an assumption. But I unequivocally believe that there is no way that out of these 338 buildings, someone didn't know. Or some people didn't know. And if there's some people or someone that knew, the most that we are probably going to know, as long as the ANC is the one holding that power, all we're going to know is that there were syndicates. Syndicates! Guys, syndicates. You see the syndicates in South Africa, ne? These so-called unnamed syndicates in South Africa. Hey, they are working hard, eh? They are working hard. As criminals, let me take a sip of this unhealthy drink. That was a gulp. That's not alcohol, by the way. I don't drink alcohol. South Africa has syndicates, guys. A lot of syndicates. And my suspicion is, with these syndicates just being called that and not being exposed for who they truly are, the people that know about these so-called syndicates, the people that earn some money from these so-called syndicates, these are some powerful people. Yeah. I truly believe these are some powerful people and they don't want to be exposed. They just don't want to be exposed. And with these new leaders from other political parties being part of this grand coalition, let's call it a GNU because they want us to call it the GNU, but it's really not that. We know this. These new leaders from these other political parties, they are actually exposing a lot of corruption that has been happening. They're exposing a lot of loopholes that criminals have been using. And with these things being exposed, it begs the question, which somebody actually asked me on a comment on another video, that if the ANC bringing new parties into this coalition, were they not afraid of corruption being exposed? And with the corruption being exposed, with all the other districts and all the other provinces that they are holding on to, just like Gauteng, how much more corruption is going to be exposed out of Gauteng, for example? Because, digressing a little bit, not just talking about the 338 hijacked buildings. These are the 338 hijacked buildings. Of course, there are others that are abandoned as well. There's a lot. I know 2 in Benoni that are government buildings that are abandoned. Of course, there's a security guard there, but if somebody wanted to hijack that building, it would be not so difficult with that one security guard there, would it now? So digressing a little bit, I think these syndicates that are working so hard and them not being exposed at all, we not knowing their names, there's some people that are within parliament that are involved. That's the first assumption that I'm going to make. If you want to call it an assumption, that's the only logical thing that I can actually lead myself to, because if it was not that, they would be exposed. If, for example, let's say these syndicates were in some way connected to maybe Julius Malema or Jacob Zuma, we would know about it by now, wouldn't we? But no, we don't know about these syndicates, their names, who they are, who they're from. It's not just hijacked buildings. It's extortion rings that are happening all over the country. Extortion rings that are happening that force small business owners, schools to pay protection fees from themselves in order for them not to do a crime to their particular businesses and the schools. Makes no sense to me. And with that happening, all we know is that they are syndicates. Syndicates. You look at the Zama Zama situation. The Zama Zama situation, we've been complaining about the Zama Zama situation in multiple areas and multiple towns. I know a few here in Gauteng. In fact, there's a very prominent Zama Zama mine close by where I live here in Cloverdene. Those guys unalive each other there inside those holes. Those guys, they kill the heck out of each other. Mostly, if not all, illegal foreigners. So it leads to another topic, another conversation again. And the people that are running these Zama Zama mines cannot be these guys that are mining. The people that are running these mines are people who have the means and the finances to actually extract those minerals and sell them. Because you can't extract minerals and not sell them. And if you're going to sell minerals, you have to sell them at a large scale. If you are selling them at a large scale, it means you also have to have the connections to be able to sell them. So now the corruption and the syndicates are not just our political leaders. It also probably goes into the private sector as well. Because we do know that the private sector is looting this country, right? Right? I mean, we all know, right? If we don't know, I guess I digress. It's not just government and the politicians that are looting this country. Private sector is doing it in large, big numbers as well. And all we know is that it's syndicates. If it's within private sector, sometimes we don't get to know the names of the companies. Hey, South Africa, I know, hey, it's a mess. It's a mess. 338 government buildings hijacked. And I use this hijacked because I don't believe that they are hijacked. I believe that somebody takes these upon themselves and says, I'm going to use them. If they audit these buildings properly, if they look back into the paperwork with these buildings, if the paperwork or the paper trail is still there, if they follow the money, we are going to be surprised. We are going to be surprised. And it's only a matter of time that people are going to be exposed. And I can't wait for that day to happen. And until then, people like myself and other commenters online, because the mainstream clearly is not going to do it. are going to continue talking. And unfortunately, it seems and feels sometimes as we may be putting our lives to risk. Fortunately for me, I don't get those big numbers. So I don't know if I'm doing that much damage. But it's just conversations. It's just conversations. Everything I've said before is alleged. I cannot confirm anything, by the way. But let me know what you think. I'll see you in the next one. Salute.